It was late on a Sunday evening when the sound of tires crunching over gravel outside my house drew my attention. I live in a quiet neighborhood, the sort of place where you know when something is out of place. The curtains were drawn, the TV humming low, and my wife, Margaret, was in her usual chair with her notebook balanced on her lap. She had that look about her, the one I recognized as deep concentration. She was scribbling down details from one of her ongoing cases. Though most people thought of her as just another neighbor with a sweet smile and a garden that looked like it belonged in a magazine, very few knew the truth. Margaret was working undercover on something far bigger than what this street ever imagined. The thud on the front door was not a knock. It was a battering. I jumped to my feet, startled. "Police! Open up!" The words shot to the night air, but something about them didn't sound right. Too rushed. Too forced, lacking the kind of control authority real officers had. My heart hammered. Margaret didn't even flinch. Instead, she leaned back in her chair and whispered, "Stay calm. Don't open it." Her voice carried that quiet confidence she always had when she was 2 steps ahead of everyone else. The pounding grew louder, more violent. Shadows moved under the porch light, at least 3 figures. One of them barked again, "Open the door now, or we'll smash it down." I wanted to believe it was a mistake, some mix-up, but Margaret closed her notebook with a slow, deliberate motion. "It's them," she said softly. "The ones I told you about. They're not real cops." Her words chilled me. I had known for months she was working on something involving the HOA, but she had been careful with details. I thought it was about financial mismanagement, maybe some kickbacks. Never had I imagined it could go this far. Men impersonating officers to intimidate us. Before I could react, the doorframe groaned under the weight of a ram. Splinters scattered across the rug as the lock gave way. The door flew open and 3 men stormed inside, clad in uniforms that looked official from a distance, but under the living room light betrayed themselves. Bad patches, belts mismatched, weapons that looked more like props than standard issue. "Step away from her," one of them barked, pointing at Margaret. His hand trembled slightly, a detail I noticed only because Margaret stood so calmly. "You boys picked the wrong house," she said evenly. Her tone was neither mocking nor afraid, just matter-of-fact. The leader sneered. "We're here on orders. HOA business. You think you can ignore notices, plant whatever you want in your yard, act like the rules don't apply? That stops tonight. HOA business." The absurdity of it almost made me laugh, if not for the way my stomach twisted in fear. They were willing to smash down a door, dress as police, and threaten us, all over some supposed violations. It was madness, but Margaret knew better. She reached slowly into her cardigan pocket, and I tensed, thinking one of the men would panic and fire. Instead, she pulled out a small black device, pressed a button, and a quiet click signaled that it had gone live. "They've been recording themselves for weeks," she said softly to me. "And now, so are we." The men didn't understand. The leader advanced, but Margaret's calm never wavered. She had been building a case, piecing together evidence that the HOA board wasn't just overstepping. It was running an extortion racket, intimidating homeowners into paying fines, then funneling that money through shell accounts. And when people resisted, they used fear, fake citations, fake legal threats. And now, fake cops. Backup. I finally managed, finding my voice. My hands shook, but I moved in front of Margaret. The men laughed. "You think we're scared of you?" one sneered. "We own this street." Margaret spoke up again, her voice cutting through the tension. "You don't own anything. Not the street, not the people, and not the law. Every second you're here, it's being logged. Real law enforcement is listening." For a moment, their bravado faltered. One of them glanced nervously at the others. The leader growled, "She's bluffing. Take her." But they underestimated her. Before they could step closer, red and blue lights flashed through the window, spilling across the living room walls. The real police had arrived. Margaret had set up days ago, suspecting this exact stunt. The fake officers froze, their courage dissolving under the wail of sirens. Real uniforms stormed in, weapons drawn, commands sharp and precise. Within seconds, the imposters were on the ground, cuffed, faces pressed against the floor. As the chaos cleared, I finally exhaled. My knees felt weak, my chest heavy. I looked at Margaret, who calmly tucked the recording device back into her pocket. "How did you know?" I asked, my voice trembling. She gave me a tired smile. "Because bullies always push until someone pushes back. And I wasn't about to let them scare us or anyone else into silence." In the weeks that followed, the story unfolded like something out of a crime novel. The HOA president and several board members were arrested, implicated in fraud, coercion, and conspiracy. The so-called enforcers they had hired were revealed to be desperate men paid under the table, promised immunity by people who thought themselves untouchable. Our neighborhood changed after that night. At first, there was fear, neighbors whispering about what happened, wondering if their homes were next. But slowly, fear turned into courage. People started speaking up, sharing their own stories of threats, unfair fines, and intimidation. Margaret's evidence, combined with the testimonies of others, brought the whole rotten structure down. I often think back to that night, the sound of the door breaking, the sight of imposters in fake uniforms, the weight of knowing how close we came to real danger. But what lingers most isn't fear. It's respect. Respect for the quiet strength of a woman who refused to let fear dictate her life, who showed me and everyone around her that standing firm, even in the face of intimidation, can change everything. The lesson wasn't just about corrupt HOAs or fake cops. It was about the power of truth, the importance of courage, and the way one person's determination can ripple out to protect many. Fear is a way of shrinking us, of convincing us we're smaller than we are. But courage, real courage, is contagious. Neighbors who once stayed silent began knocking on our door not to complain, but to thank us. Older couples who felt trapped by endless HOA fees found their voices again. Younger families realized they didn't have to live in fear of harassment. Even the sheriff, who came by one afternoon to thank Margaret personally, admitted that her foresight and evidence had spared the county months of investigation. Life returned to normal in its own way. The flowers in Margaret's garden bloomed brighter than ever, and the once intimidated neighbors now gathered on weekends, children playing on lawns without fear of citations. Our street, once ruled by control and fear, found freedom again. And sometimes, when I sit on the porch in the quiet of evening, I catch Margaret writing in her notebook, her face lit by the fading sun. She doesn't talk much about that night anymore, and she doesn't need to. The lesson lingers with all of us. Courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about standing steady when fear pounds on your door and refusing to let it inside.